So Andrew and I were visiting our friend Zach, who was fortunate enough to be house sitting for Susan Howe. So I get to go to Susan Howe's house, and now I want everything like her, right? She's amazing. And when we were there, a little bird died. So there's a little hummingbird that hit the window. It's called Ode to a Tiny Green Hummingbird. Remember me as a beauty, silent hum above, umbrella, nest, gloves. Beat gently, oh my heart, beat gently, oh my darting heart. Okay, so I'm from Minnesota and it gets really cold there, and this is sort of based on a true story. A lesser thing. Parting is all we need to know about. I'm only taking some. He called her from a rest stop phone booth on a highway somewhere on the way back from Nogales. He thought it was strange to see Christmas lights in the desert. From across the road, he could trace the outline of a house, an attached garage done up in multicolored bulbs, everything around it so desolate. Something sort of insulating about snow, he thought, as he dialed her number. What was it, 2 Novembers ago? Del Lambert had given him enough hay bales to surround the perimeter of the farmhouse, hoping to cut down on their heat bills. Patsy had helped him, dragged the bales off the truck and across the lawn. She was good that way, he thought. She never complained a bit either. He knew in his heart that she wouldn't pick up the phone, not even with the entire desert lit up like Las Vegas. The phone booth had no door, and the desert wind was blowing bits of coarse sand in his eyes. Ring, ring, ring. He wished for the snow and for the bed they used to share, the blanket Patsy had made when she was recovering from chickenpox, patchwork from all his old jeans and his funnel shirts and her flowery shirts, too. He felt a lesser thing without her. The phone kept ringing. They never did invest in an answering machine, and so he just stood there on the side of the highway thinking of all the things he would say if only she'd pick up. To tell her he felt like the cows that suffocated on their own icy breath during the worst storm he'd seen, remembering how after he shoveled out the back door, he and Patsy had traipsed out to the field to find at least 50 dead on the ground, all piled together in a heap, icicles hanging from their nostrils and chins. And Patsy had stood there in the middle of that pure white field crying like the ground had been pulled out from her feet. And everything meant nothing at all, those tears steaming off her pretty face. He'd tell her he was suffocating on his own breath like that in the hot desert. Maybe this time she'd understand, and he could go home to their bed and their quilt and the hay bales. Ring, ring, ring. If only she'd pick up the goddamn phone. This was my Christmas present. So my son. My son was born on October 2nd, so this is to Matthew. October 2nd, 1991.
She likes it.
She's so sweet. Monterey fog churns and lifts. To water turns my heart. Shining heavenly, he cries. What I heard in my head, a kind of hunger quietly persists, hands and shapes, bleeding. I said, play a song with me, what I heard in my head one night at a place with a fiddler. But then a real rupture, a reminder of impotence, paresthesis on the left, as if I'm asleep. In a bed, the stiffness of your ghost turns, shoulders soft. All right, this is a semi-autobiographical piece. Minnesota's crazy, just trust me. Nobody believes me when I tell about the time I flew on my snow shovel. Well, my cousin Bobby does, sort of. He says it was more of a levitation than flying, and I guess he's right. Standing out there leaning against the shovel, I felt my legs lift right up from the ground. I held the wooden handle tight with the shovel stuck in the snow. I looked back over my shoulder, and sure enough, my legs were floating like flags blowing in the wind. Then I ran into the house to tell Mom. I flew on my snow shovel. She was busy making a racket in the kitchen. She stopped for a minute and said, "Oh, you did," in that tone grown-ups use when kids try to tell them something that seems too silly. She went back to mixing cookies, mumbling oven directions under her breath. People don't get it. Levitating on a shovel can change a girl. But I learned my lesson when I tried to write about it in Mr. Swanebeck's class. The assignment was to compose a favorite winter memory. He called Mom in because he was concerned about my perception of reality. So I keep it to myself. Bobby believes everything anyways. Oh yeah, Uncle Swen believes me too. He's the smartest man I know. Says chewing tobacco preserves the teeth. He's also the most famous lawyer in Cottonwood. He had to go away to Minneapolis for years learning laws about how to marry people and stuff. And afterwards he came back here and set up his office across the street from the tractor store. Bobby told me that once Swen went to court wearing a snowmobile suit. Judge Kermit said he could take it off, but big fat Uncle Swen wasn't wearing any clothes under it. I laugh when I'm thinking of him standing up there in his red snowsuit, trying to keep serious. Being pretty bright, Uncle Swen knows how to treat a girl telling the truth about levitation. It's a special understanding between us. Like when he found me throwing rotten eggs against the back of Grandma Bernie's barn. I thought he might shout at me, because those eggs smelled awful bad. Instead, he stood there, watched, and walked away. How did he know I wasn't throwing eggs for any reason? Still, he'll take me along in his big Lincoln, and we'll go driving around the lake. I don't talk during these trips. I listen. I think. Sometimes he yells out the car window, "Oh God, why have you cast me out on these winds?" He's right though. The winds here will burn your face if you're not careful. Not much to break the horizon except the grain elevators and the church. I've noticed the naughty words coming out of his mouth multiply whenever a lady's around. Mom says I'm supposed to close my ears when he says the F word, but I know that ears don't have doors. Uncle Swen's favorite book is Moby Dick. He used to read me parts of it. After defending Llewellyn Nelson for burning down her boyfriend's barn, he told me, Ishmael escaped the whale because he renounced vengeance. I'm not sure what that means yet. So, in Susan Hill's backyard, she has these like amazing sculptures, and one of them reminded me very much of a grave. So, I was thinking about that, and then I've been really getting into Frank Lloyd Wright, and this inspired this. There's a quote by Frank Lloyd Wright: "No house should ever be built on a hill or on anything. It should be of the hill, belonging to it. Hill and house should live together, and each the happier for each other." There's a grave out back I'd fit across. Scarred soul in need of saving. Give us room enough to pace. Desire nothing but endless distance. And I'll just end with a New Year poem. It's about being drunk. All night long clock fills snow falling silence. Morning lit room bursts familiar, flickering reminiscence, light-headedly absent. Thank you.